If you've been counting on your GST check showing up every 3 months like clockwork, I need you to stop what you're doing and listen carefully because that check does not exist anymore. As of July 2026, the GST/HST credit that millions of Canadian seniors relied on for over 30 years has officially been retired by the federal government. Gone, replaced. And if nobody's explained this to you clearly yet, you are not alone. I've heard from seniors right across this country who opened their banking app expecting to see the familiar GST/HST credit deposit and instead saw nothing or saw a payment under a name they didn't recognize and immediately assumed something had gone wrong. Now, before you panic, and I know for a lot of you, any word out of Ottawa involving your money makes your stomach drop, I want you to know this is not necessarily bad news. In fact, if you play this right, you could end up with more money than you were getting before, but only if you understand exactly what changed, exactly what you're now entitled to, and exactly what you need to do to make sure the Canada Revenue Agency doesn't quietly leave you off the list. Because here's the part nobody's telling you. This isn't a simple rename. There's a one-time bonus payment that already went out earlier this year that some of you may have missed entirely. There's a new eligibility structure with different maximum amounts depending on your household. There's a provincial layer that stacks on top of the federal amount that most seniors have never heard of. And there's one small paperwork mistake, one that's incredibly easy to make, that could cut you out of this completely, even if you qualified for the old GST credit for decades without a single issue. So stick with me for the next 15 to 20 minutes because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what this new benefit is called, what it's worth to you in real dollars broken down by income level, the exact payment dates going forward, and the step-by-step process to make sure your money lands in your account on time every time. And partway through, I'm going to show you a second smaller benefit that stacks directly on top of this one that almost nobody applies for E, and it could be worth close to $2,000 more to you every single year depending on where you live. Let's get into it point by point so nothing gets missed. Point number one, what actually happened to the GST/HST credit? What is it? For decades, the GST/HST credit was a quarterly tax-free payment from the CRA designed to help lower and modest income Canadians offset the sales tax they pay on everyday purchases, groceries, household goods, anything with GST or HST tacked onto it. If you were a senior living on a fixed income, CPP, OAS, maybe a small workplace pension, this was one of the few payments that came in automatically, no application needed as long as you filed your taxes every year. That program, as you knew it, is now closed. In its place is a brand new benefit called the Canada Groceries and Essentials Benefit, or CGEB for short. Finance Canada didn't just slap a new name on the old check and call it a day. They restructured the payment amounts upward, and they built in a temporary bonus specifically to cushion the transition for people like you who are relying on that quarterly income. What is it worth? Here's where it gets good, and I want you to really pay attention to these numbers because they matter for your household specifically. The CGEB pays 25% more than the old GST/HST credit ever did. And that increase is permanent. It's not a one-year bump that disappears. On top of that ongoing increase, there was a one-time top-up payment that landed on June 5th, 2026, for anyone who was entitled to their January 2026 GST credit. If you received a GST deposit back in January of this year, that top-up should have already hit your account in early June. If it didn't, that's your first red flag, and we'll cover exactly what to do about that in a few minutes. Let's talk real numbers. For a single senior with a net income around $25,000 a year, the math works out to a $267 one-time top-up plus a $136 ongoing increase for a combined total of roughly $950 for the 2026 to 27 benefit year. That's $402 more than that same senior would have received under the old GST/HST credit structure. For a couple with 2 children and a combined net income of $40,000, the numbers stack even higher. A $533 top-up plus a $272 increase, adding up to $805 more than before, bringing their total benefit to around $1,890 for the year. Now, most of you watching are seniors without dependent children at home, so let's focus on what that means for you specifically. A single senior on a fixed income or a senior couple with no dependents still qualifies for the maximum amount as long as your income falls under the threshold. And for most seniors relying primarily on OAS, GIS, and CPP, that threshold is well within reach. How do they get it? Here's the part that matters most. You don't apply for this separately. Just like the old GST credit, the CRA calculates your CGEB automatically based on your income tax return. There is no special form number for this one, no T-slip, no online portal application. The only action required from you is filing your taxes every single year on time, even if you had zero income for the year. If you or your spouse skip a tax year, the CRA has no return to calculate your entitlement from, and your payment simply stops. No warning letter arrives in the mail, no phone call from an agent. It just doesn't show up in your account and you're left wondering what happened. Now I know what some of you are thinking right now. Is this legit? Every time the government renames something, it feels like a sneaky way to quietly take money away from people like us. I hear you, and honestly, that skepticism is healthy. You should question these things, especially after years of watching benefit programs shift and shrink. But this one checks out. This is a real confirmed program change straight from Finance Canada and the CRA, not some viral rumor floating around social media. And speaking of rumors, I want to address this directly because the CRA itself has had to put out a public warning about it. There is disinformation circulating online right now claiming there's a new $2,000 direct deposit relief payment for Canadians. Separate from everything we're discussing today, that claim is completely false. There is no such program. If you see that figure, $2,000 government relief payment, or it would show up in a Facebook post, a text message, or an email claiming to be from the CRA, delete it immediately and do not click any links. It's a phishing scam specifically designed to steal your banking information by pretending to be a legitimate government benefit. The only real change happening right now is the one we're walking through together in this video, your GST credit becoming the Canada Groceries and Essentials benefit. Point number 2, the new payment schedule. What is it? The CGEB follows the same quarterly rhythm the GST credit always did, but the calendar effectively resets under the new name. The first payment under the new benefit landed July 3rd, 2026. From there, it continues on a quarterly cycle, just like the old GST credit did, so you'll see it labeled differently on your bank statement now. Don't be alarmed when GST/HST credit disappears from your deposit history and something like Canada Fed-CGEB or Canada Groceries Benefit takes its place. It's the same government, the same automatic deposit system, just a new name and a bigger number. What is it worth? This is where seniors especially need to pay close attention because there are 2 distinct phases to this benefit, and the amount you receive changes between them. Phase 1 covers the 2026 to 27 benefit year, which is the period we're in right now. This phase includes both the one-time top-up we already discussed and the ongoing 25% increase. This is why the numbers look especially generous right now. You're getting the bonus and the permanent increase at the same time. Phase 2 begins the following benefit year, once the one-time top-up disappears, but the 25% increase remains locked in. Finance Canada has confirmed this ongoing annual benefit will settle at roughly $700 a year for a single senior and close to $1,400 a year for a family of 4. That's not a one-time gift that vanishes. That's money that keeps coming in every single year for at least the next 5 years. Finance Canada has committed to this enhanced structure running from 2026 through 2031. How did they get it? Again, no separate application required. But here's the critical detail that trips a lot of people up. Your 2025 tax return is what determines your increased quarterly payment starting in July 2026. If you filed late this year, or if there was an error somewhere on your return, a missed pension slip, an incorrect marital status, an old address, your first few CGEB payments could come in lower than expected or could be delayed by weeks while the CRA sorts out the discrepancy. If that happens to you, don't just assume it's permanent or that you've been cut off. Call the CRA benefits line directly at 1-800-959-8281 and ask them specifically to review your benefit calculation based on your most recent notice of assessment. Have your social insurance number and your most recent tax return handy when you call. It speeds up the process significantly. I know some of you are wondering right now, will this new benefit affect my GIS? I can't afford to lose my guaranteed income supplement over some new program I didn't even ask for. This is one of the most common questions I get on every video I make about senior benefits, and I want to be crystal clear with you. No, it will not affect your GIS. The CGEB, exactly like the GST credit before it, is a non-taxable payment. It does not count as income anywhere on your tax return, which means it cannot reduce your guaranteed income supplement, your OAS, or any other income-tested benefit you're already receiving. This is completely separate money sitting on top of everything else you're entitled to. And if your accountant hasn't mentioned this change to you yet, that doesn't mean they're hiding something or dropping the ball. It's simply because this is brand new. Most tax professionals are still updating their own client files and software to reflect the name change and the new calculation structure. This isn't something being hidden from you. It's just moving fast at the government level, and the paperwork and public awareness haven't fully caught up everywhere yet. That's exactly why I'm making this video. Point number 3, The provincial add-on, most seniors miss completely. What is it? Here's the part I promised you at the start of this video, the piece almost nobody talks about, and the one that could genuinely change your financial picture this year. Several provinces layer their own senior-specific supplement directly on top of the new federal CGEB payment. This isn't a rumor or a maybe. It's built directly into how your quarterly payment gets calculated behind the scenes. In Ontario, for example, there's a program that pays out as part of the Ontario Trillium benefit structure, specifically targeted at low-income seniors age 65 and older. It's not a separate check you need to track down or apply for on your own. It gets folded directly into your CGEB deposit, combined into a single payment. What is it worth? For a single senior 65 or older with an adjusted family net income of $30,409 or less, this provincial add-on is worth up to $1,882 a year, completely non-taxable. If your income falls between $30,409 and $46,549, you still qualify for a partial amount on a sliding scale. That is real meaningful money, stacked directly on top of everything we've already discussed today. And most seniors have absolutely no idea it exists because it doesn't show up as its own separate line item anywhere on their statements. Let's put this in perspective. If you're a single Ontario senior with modest income, you could be looking at your $950 CGEB total for this year, plus up to $1,882 from this provincial supplement, for a combined total approaching nearly $2,800 in benefits you may not have even known you were eligible for a few months ago. How do they get it? Just like the CGEB itself, there is no separate form to fill out for most provincial senior supplements. They're calculated automatically from your tax return and combined into your quarterly CGEB payment. But, and this is genuinely important to us, every province structures this differently with different thresholds and different names for their programs. If you live in Nova Scotia, there's a credit specifically designed to offset the HST increase for low and modest income households, calculated similarly through your tax return. In Newfoundland and Labrador, there's a provincially funded seniors benefit that follows the same automatic combination model. If you're elsewhere in the country, your province almost certainly has its own version of this, even if the name and dollar amounts differ. The single most important thing you can do to make sure you're getting whatever applies to your province is to make sure your tax return correctly reflects your province of residence as of December 31st of the tax year. That one field on your tax return is exactly what determines which provincial supplement, if any, gets automatically attached to your federal CGEB payment. If you moved provinces recently and your return still shows your old address, you could be missing out on money you're otherwise entitled to. Now, some of you might be thinking, this all sounds complicated. How do I even know if I'm getting the right combined amount or if something's been missed? Here's the honest, practical answer. You check your CRA My account online, or if you're not comfortable with computers, you call the CRA benefits line directly at 1-800-959-8281 and ask them to walk you through your CGEB notice line by line. It genuinely takes about 10 minutes on the phone. And if a family member helps you with your taxes each year, a son, a daughter, a niece who does your return for you, make sure they know about this change too. Because if they're still filing under old assumptions about how the GST credit worked, they might not realize there's now a provincial layer that needs to be double-checked, or that the eligibility calculation has shifted slightly under the new name. Point number 4, the filing mistake that ends your payments. What is it? This is, without question, the single biggest risk to your CGEB payments continuing without interruption. Not filing your taxes or filing significantly late. Unlike some benefits that offer a grace period or a warning system, the CRA cannot calculate an entitlement for you if there's no assessed tax return on file, tax for you, and if you're married or common law for your spouse as well. It doesn't matter if you had zero income last year. It doesn't matter if you're 90 years old and haven't held a job in 3 decades. It doesn't matter if you assume the CRA already knows your situation because you filed the same way for 40 years straight. The CRA still needs that current year's return, assessed and on file, every single year without exception. What is it worth? If your return isn't filed, your CGEB payment amount doesn't get reduced. It drops to 0 until the return is filed and properly assessed. For a couple who could be looking at close to $1,900 in combined benefits this year between the federal and provincial layers, that's not a small gap to absorb on a fixed income. That's real grocery money, real heating bill money, disappearing entirely because of a missed filing deadline or a return that got lost in the shuffle. How do they get it? File every year without fail, even with no income to report. If you need help doing this and don't have a family member who can assist, the CRA runs free tax clinics specifically for seniors and low-income Canadians through something called the Community Volunteer Income Tax Program, or CVITP. You can call 1-800-959-8281 or search CVITP directly on the Canada.ca website to find a volunteer-run clinic near you. These clinics are staffed by trained volunteers, they're completely free, and they exist specifically to help people in exactly your situation. If you already filed your return and your CGEB payment still hasn't come through by the date you expected it, don't just wait it out for months hoping it resolves itself. Call the CRA and specifically ask for a benefit account review. The longer a discrepancy sits unresolved, the harder it can sometimes be to untangle, so address it as soon as you notice something's off. Point number 5, if you've never received this benefit before. What is it? Here's something important for a specific group of you watching. The Canada Groceries and Essentials benefit is expected to support more than 12 million Canadians overall, and roughly 500,000 of those recipients are brand new, meaning they weren't previously eligible for the old GST/HST credit at all. If your income has changed recently, if you recently retired and your income dropped significantly, or if you started receiving GIS for the first time, you may fall into this newly eligible group without even realizing it. What is it worth? For someone in this position, this isn't a matter of losing an old benefit and gaining a new, slightly bigger one. This is entirely new money you weren't receiving before at all. Depending on your income level, that could mean anywhere from a few $100s to close to the full $950 figure we discussed earlier, arriving in your account for the very first time this year. How do they get it? The good news is the process is identical to everyone else. File your taxes, and the CRA automatically determines whether you now qualify based on your most recent return. But because this is new for you, I'd strongly encourage you to actually check your CRA My Account or call the benefits line proactively, rather than just waiting to see if a deposit shows up. Sometimes newly eligible recipients get missed in the very first assessment cycle simply due to how quickly the transition rolled out, and a quick phone call can catch that early rather than months down the line. At this point, some of you are probably thinking, this all sounds great, but why does the government even bother reorganizing something that already worked fine? That's a fair question. The honest answer is that this restructuring was framed around helping Canadians manage the rising cost of groceries and everyday essentials specifically, hence the name change. Whether or not you agree with how it was communicated or how long it took to reach people like you, the practical reality for your household is simple. More money is available to you now than before, and the only cost to you is making sure your paperwork is in order. The outro. So here's what I want you to walk away with today, laid out simply so you can act on it this week. The GST credit you've known for decades is gone, but the Canada Groceries and Essentials benefit that replaced it pays more, up to 25% more on an ongoing basis, plus a one-time top-up many of you already received back in June of this year. If you're in a province like Ontario, Nova Scotia, or Newfoundland and Labrador, there's likely an additional provincial supplement stacked directly on top of that federal amount, worth potentially close to $2,000 more depending on your income. Your action step is simple, and I want you to actually do this today, not just nod along and move on with your day. First, make sure your 2025 tax return is filed and fully assessed. If it isn't, that needs to happen immediately because it's the single biggest factor determining whether you receive anything at all. Second, check your CRA My Account or call 1-800-959-8281 to confirm your CGEB amount matches what we talked about today for your income level and household situation. Third, if you're in a province with a senior supplement program, make sure your address and province of residence on file with the CRA are accurate and up to date. If this video helped clear up the confusion around this change, do me a favor. Share it with a neighbor, a sibling, a friend from your community group, or anyone in your life who might still be sitting there wondering why their GST check stopped coming. A lot of seniors don't have anyone walking them through these changes step by step, and a 5-second share from you could genuinely put hundreds or even close to $2,000 back in someone else's pocket this year. Drop a comment below and let me know. Did you already receive your CGEB top-up back in June, or are you still waiting on it? I read every single comment on these videos, and if enough of you have questions about your specific province's add-on program, I'll put together a full dedicated breakdown video covering every province individually with exact dollar figures for each one. And if you don't want to miss the next benefit change coming out of Ottawa, because trust me, there is always another one right around the corner, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss it. I'll see you in the next video.